As the darkness settles around you and the silence of the night grows thicker, I find myself drawn to the shadowy corners of history, where the past whispers its secrets to those who listen. I always come back to this one, the medieval era, a time when the lines between justice and cruelty were blurred, and the punishments for ordinary crimes were as brutal as they were fascinating. In the dimly lit town squares, the sound of hammers ringing against stone, the scent of freshly cut wood, and the murmur of the crowd would have been the backdrop for the gruesome spectacles that unfolded. You would have heard the creaking of wooden beams, the rattle of chains, as the bloodied pillars of justice stood tall, a constant reminder of the consequences of wrongdoing. In medieval Europe, the concept of punishment was deeply rooted in the idea of retribution, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The punishments were designed to be public, to serve as a deterrent, a warning to those who would consider committing similar crimes. The gallows, the scaffold, and the pillory were the stages upon which these dramas played out, each one a grim reminder of the power of the state to inflict pain and suffering. As the years passed, the punishments became more sophisticated, more brutal, reflecting the darker aspects of human nature. The use of torture, for example, became a common practice, a means of extracting confessions and punishing those deemed guilty. In the darkness of the medieval night, the shadows cast by the flickering torches would have danced across the faces of the onlookers as they watched the punishments being meted out. The air would have been heavy with the smell of sweat, blood, and fear as the condemned were led to their fate. And yet, despite the brutality of these punishments, there's a strange, somber beauty to them, a reflection of the complexities of human nature and the darker aspects of our own psyche. The medieval punishments for ordinary crimes were a manifestation of the societal norms of the time, a reflection of the values and beliefs that governed the lives of those who lived in that era. As we explore this dark and fascinating history, the shadows of the past begin to take shape, and the silence of the night is filled with the whispers of the forgotten. As the sun sets over a medieval town, the streets grow quiet, save for the occasional sound of a blacksmith hammering away at a glowing piece of metal, or the murmur of hushed conversations from the nearby tavern. It's a time of day when the townspeople retreat to their homes, seeking comfort and warmth after a long day's work. But for some, the evening brings a different kind of solitude, one that's marked by humiliation and pain. You would have heard the sound of wooden planks being fitted together, the creaking of hinges as the town's stocks are prepared for the night's occupants. I always come back to this one, the image of a person, often an ordinary citizen, locked in the stocks, exposed to the elements and the cruel whims of their neighbors. The crimes that led them there were often minor, a stolen loaf of bread, a drunken brawl, or a petty dispute with a neighbor. Yet the punishment was designed to be public, to shame the individual and serve as a warning to others. The stocks, a simple yet effective device, consisting of two wooden planks hinged together with holes for the head and hands. As the night wears on, the town's residents would gather, some out of curiosity, others to mock and jeer at the unfortunate soul on display. The air would be thick with the smell of smoke, sweat, and damp earth. As the person in the stocks struggles to find a comfortable position, their muscles cramping, their mind racing with thoughts of regret and despair. The sound of laughter, the rustling of clothing, and the occasional toss of a rotten vegetable would all blend together, creating a sense of unease, a feeling that this could happen to anyone at any time. In the darkness, the stalks seemed to loom larger, a symbol of the community's power, a reminder that even the smallest transgression can lead to public shaming. The person in the stalks, once a neighbor, a friend, or a family member, is now a spectacle, a cautionary tale, a reminder of the consequences of disobedience. As the hours tick by, the crowd disperses, the town grows quiet, and the person in the stalks is left to their thoughts, a somber, solitary figure lost in the darkness, with only their regrets to keep them company. As we settle into the darkness, the shadows of the past begin to whisper their tales, and I find myself drawn to the medieval era, where the lines between justice and cruelty were often blurred. Flogging, a punishment that dates back to ancient times, was a common practice in those days, used to discipline both the body and the soul. You would have heard the sound of the lash, the crack of the whip, echoing through the streets of medieval towns, a stark reminder of the consequences of wrongdoing. In the 13th century, the use of flogging as a punishment was widespread, with offenders being led through the streets, their backs bare, as they received their due. The number of lashes was often determined by the severity of the crime, with more serious offenses resulting in a greater number of strokes. I always come back to this one, the story of a young thief caught stealing a loaf of bread, who was sentenced to 20 lashes, a punishment that would leave him scarred, both physically and emotionally. The technique of flogging varied, with some using a single-tailed whip, while others employed a cat o' nine tails, a multi-stranded lash that could inflict maximum damage. The goal was not only to punish, but to humiliate, to break the spirit of the offender, and to serve as a deterrent to others. In some cases, the flogging was so severe that it resulted in death, a grim reminder of the unforgiving nature of medieval justice. As we drift deeper into the night, the darkness seems to amplify the sounds of the past, and we can almost hear the murmurs of the crowd gathered to witness the punishment, their voices a mixture of awe and horror. The smell of blood and sweat hangs in the air, a potent reminder of the brutality of the times. And yet, even in the midst of such brutality, there were those who questioned the use of flogging, who saw it as a barbaric practice, a relic of a bygone era. Their voices, though faint, can still be heard, a whispered critique of a system that often valued punishment over rehabilitation. As you settle into the darkness, the weight of history begins to seep in, and the medieval world slowly comes into focus, a time when the rule of law was often harsh and unforgiving. In the quiet hours, the shadows of the past seem to grow longer, and the punishments meted out to those who broke the law take on a somber, eerie quality. Hanging, in particular, was a common fate for those convicted of ordinary crimes, a stark reminder of the brutal efficiency of medieval justice. In the towns and villages of medieval England, the sound of the hangman's noose was a familiar one, a grim punctuation mark in the daily life of the community. You would have heard the mournful tolling of the church bell, signaling the approach of the condemned, their footsteps echoing through the streets as they made their way to the gallows. The atmosphere would have been heavy with anticipation. The crowd gathered to witness the spectacle, their faces a mixture of curiosity and dread. I always come back to this one, the case of a young woman, barely out of her teens, who was hanged in the marketplace for stealing a loaf of bread to feed her family. The desperation that drove her to such a desperate act is almost palpable, a stark reminder of the harsh realities of life in medieval times. The punishment, of course, was meant to serve as a deterrent, a warning to others who would consider breaking the law, but it's hard not to feel a sense of tragic inevitability, as if the outcome was never really in doubt. As the darkness deepens, the image of the gallows begins to take shape, a stark and foreboding presence that looms over the medieval landscape. The creaking of the wooden beam, the rustling of the rope, and the faint whisper of the wind through the trees all blend together to create a haunting melody, a psalm requiem for the condemned. In this quiet, contemplative moment, the past seems to stir, and the shadows of the medieval world slowly begin to take on a life of their own, drawing you deeper into the darkness, where the secrets of history wait to be uncovered. As the sun set over medieval towns, a sense of unease settled over the streets, for it was in the fading light that public punishments often took place, a grim reminder of the consequences of wrongdoing. You would have heard the sound of drums beating, a psalm signal that a sentence was about to be carried out. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and sweat, the crowd gathering to witness the spectacle of shame. I always come back to this one, the way the flickering flames seem to dance in time with the murmurs of the onlookers, as if the very fire itself was a participant in the ritual of public disgracing. In the town square, a stake was often erected, its wooden surface scarred from countless fires that had come before. The accused, typically a commoner, would be led to the stake, their wrists and ankles bound by heavy chains, as the crowd jeered and taunted. The crime might have been theft, or perhaps a petty offense like slander or public drunkenness, but the punishment was always designed to humiliate and intimidate. The sound of sizzling meat and the smell of charred flesh filled the air, a potent reminder of the fate that awaited those who broke the law. As the flames engulfed the stake, the crowd would grow quiet, mesmerized by the sight of the suffering. The accused would scream, their cries echoing off the stone buildings, a haunting sound that seemed to linger long after the punishment was over. And yet, despite the horror of it all, the crowd would often seem almost fascinated, as if drawn in by the primal power of the fire. It's a strange thing, the way human nature can be both repelled and attracted to the darker aspects of our own history. The flames would eventually die down, leaving behind a smoldering husk, a grim reminder of the price of disobedience. In the silence that followed, the crowd would disperse, each person lost in their own thoughts. The darkness of the night, a fitting backdrop for the somber mood that had settled over the town. As you settle into the darkness, the weight of history begins to seep in, like a chill that refuses to be shaken, and I find myself drawn to the medieval era, a time when the lines between justice and cruelty were often blurred, and the punishments meted out to ordinary people were, by today's standards, nothing short of brutal. I always come back to this one, the way the medieval mind rationalized the use of torture as a means of extracting confessions, of punishing the guilty, and of serving as a deterrent to others. The screams of the accused still echo through the ages, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked in the hearts of men. In the towns and villages of medieval Europe, the sounds of everyday life, the clang of hammer on anvil, the murmur of haggling merchants, the clucking of chickens would have been punctuated by the occasional cry of pain, as some unfortunate soul was subjected to the tender mercies of the local justice system. You would have heard the creaking of wooden racks, the rattling of chains, and the muffled sobs of those who had been condemned to suffer. The use of torture was not uncommon, and it was often used to extract confessions from those who were accused of crimes, no matter how minor. A person accused of theft, for example, might be subjected to the strappado, a device that would slowly dislocate their shoulders, or the water torture, where they would be forced to swallow large amounts of water, causing their stomach to bloat. The atmosphere of fear and intimidation that pervaded these medieval towns is almost palpable, even from a distance of centuries. The very fabric of society seemed to be woven from a thread of violence and reprisal, where the strong preyed on the weak, and the rule of law was often nothing more than a distant rumor. And yet, despite the darkness that seems to suffuse this period, there is a certain somber fascination to be found in the intricate web of customs and traditions that govern the administration of justice. The use of torture, for instance, was often carefully regulated, with rules governing the types of torture that could be used and the duration for which they could be applied. It's a strange, perverse kind of solace, perhaps, but it serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of humanity to be found, a spark of compassion that flickers, however faintly, in the darkness. As you sink deeper into the stillness of the night, the shadows cast by the flickering candles of history begin to lengthen, and the weight of centuries past settles softly around you. The medieval world, with its intricate tapestry of customs and punishments, slowly comes into focus, like a watercolor painting emerging from the mist. In the town squares of old Europe, the sound of hammering on stone, the creaking of wooden beams, and the murmur of crowds gathered to witness the meting out of justice still linger, echoes of a time when punishment was a public spectacle. You would have heard the clang of iron on iron, the shouted cries of the condemned, and the solemn pronouncements of the town crier, all blending together in a somber melody that filled the air. I always come back to this one, the case of the petty thief, caught and tried in the bustling market town of York in the year 1375. The punishment, a branding on the forehead with a hot iron, a mark that would stay with the offender for the rest of their days, a constant reminder of their transgression. The smell of seared flesh and the sound of screams still hang in the air, a haunting reminder of the brutal efficiency of medieval justice. As you drift further into the darkness, the images begin to blur like watercolors in the rain, and the sounds grow fainter until all that's left is the soft whisper of the past, a gentle breeze that stirs the leaves of forgotten memories. In the silence, the stone walls of the medieval towns seem to loom larger, their weathered surfaces bearing the scars of countless punishments, the crimson stains of blood and shame seeping into the mortar, a reminder of the countless lives that were forever changed by the harsh justice of the time. The world outside recedes, and you're left alone with the shadows, the only sound the soft creaking of the old wooden beams and the distant whisper of the past, a lullaby of sorrow and regret. As the darkness deepens, the medieval world, with all its brutal beauty, slowly fades into the distance, leaving you to drift on the tides of sleep, carried by the gentle currents of the past. As the darkness falls, like a shroud over the medieval landscape, the weight of fear settles upon the people, a constant reminder of the punishments that await those who dare to break the law. The clanging of chains, the creaking of wooden stalks, and the murmur of hushed conversations all blend together to create a sense of unease that permeates every aspect of life. You would have heard the sound of hammering on metal, the smell of hot iron wafting through the air, as the blacksmiths worked tirelessly to craft the instruments of punishment that would be used to mete out justice. In the town squares, the gallows stood tall, a grim reminder of the ultimate punishment, a symbol of the nation's fear in chains. The hangman's noose, a simple yet effective tool, was used to dispatch those who had committed the most heinous crimes, their bodies left to swing in the wind, a warning to all who would dare to follow in their footsteps. I always come back to this one, the story of a young woman accused of theft and punished by being placed in the stocks, her head and hands locked in place, left to the mercy of the crowd, a cruel fate that would be hers to endure for hours, perhaps even days. The use of branding irons, red hot and glowing, was another common punishment, the smell of burning flesh a pungent reminder of the transgression, the mark left on the skin a permanent reminder of the crime. The pillory, a wooden frame, was used to publicly humiliate those who had been found guilty, their heads and hands locked in place, left to the mercy of the crowd, a cruel fate that would be theirs to endure for hours, perhaps even days. As the night wears on, the darkness deepens, and the shadows grow long, the sounds of the town fade away, leaving only the distant clang of chains, a haunting reminder of the nation's fear in chains. In the stillness of the night, the mind begins to wander, to reflect on the nature of justice and the punishments that were once meted out, the fear that gripped the hearts of those who lived in a time when the rule of law was often brutal and unforgiving. The darkness seems to press in, a physical presence that weighs upon the chest, making it hard to breathe as the thoughts turn to the countless lives that were lost, the families torn apart, the communities left to pick up the pieces, and the fear that lingered long after the punishments had been carried out. And so, as the night wears on, the darkness slowly begins to recede, the shadows retreat, and the silence is broken only by the soft sound of breathing, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a way forward, a chance for redemption and a new beginning.